Tell me one thing, the way how startups keep looking forward to VCs like gods, कुछ दे दो पैसा, क्या VCs किसी के पास जाते हैं?
See, one is our investors, right? उनके बिना हम नहीं हैं. We are clearly value-based investing, not in the stock market way, but in startups. So we believe in the idea of unit economics. Failure for me is anyone not giving me 2x and above.
So you spoke about bias. What about domain bias? Are you biased towards certain domain?
Okay, so venture fund is a power law game, right? This is not an average or a bell curve game, right? I want two of my startups to do successful, then I make my money. And
What about AI?
Yeah, so
अब
we
trend
have-
पूरा AI shift हो रहा है.
yeah, we have invested in 3 generative AI companies.
But what I learned is PMS is a 3 years game. But when it comes to AIF, which is your area, which is alternate investment fund, there it's a cycle of 6 to 7 years. So if you are ready to go for that long, हेलो दोस्तों, स्वागत है आपका टफ स्टोरी पॉडकास्ट में। एक ऐसा शो जहां हम मिलते हैं उन लोगों से जो अपने विजन और डेडिकेशन के साथ नए अपॉर्चुनिटीज क्रिएट करते हैं और इंस्पायरिंग जर्नीज के जरिए हमें मोटिवेट भी करते हैं। आज के एपिसोड के गेस्ट है मिस्टर अजय जैन, जो फाउंडर और मैनेजिंग पार्टनर है सिल्वर नीडल्स वेंचर के, एक ग्रोथ पार्टनर जो स्टार्टअप्स और इन्वेस्टर्स के बीच एक स्ट्रॉन्ग ब्रिज का काम कर रहा है। और अजय जी का जो वास्ट एक्सपीरियंस है और एक्सपर्टाइज है वो हमें बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग इनसाइट्स देंगे कि कैसे स्टार्टअप्स को ग्रो करने के लिए राइट स्ट्रैटेजीज और इन्वेस्टमेंट्स का एक रोल होता है। और मेरे साथ है वेनु अन्नमराजू, जो अपने एंगेजिंग सवालों और थॉटफुल पर्सपेक्टिव के साथ कन्वर्सेशंस को बहुत ही ज्यादा इंटरेस्टिंग और डायनेमिक बना देते हैं। चलिए शुरू करते हैं आज का टफ स्टोरी। So welcome to the podcast, Ajay ji.
Sure, thanks, Amit.
How are you
nice
doing?
Nice to be here with you and Venu. I'm doing good. I'm doing okay, I think. First time in such a formal atmosphere. So
Oh, is it? Let's make it very casual because the idea is to be very casual.
I meant formal with all the tools going on here.
जब हम बात कर रहे हैं बिजनेस की तो मेरे टीम मेंबर ने सर्च किया, उन्होंने बोला कि आप वीसी के वर्ल्ड से तो हो ही,
Sure.
आपकी फैमिली पहले भी पैसे ब्याज पे देती थी, तो ये हमसे कनेक्ट हो गया। मैंने कहा ये तो हम गुजराती वालों का काम है, तो मैंने कहा ये सही है, दिस इज द पर्सन विद हुम आई शुड टॉक।
Sure.
ऑफ कोर्स बिफोर वी स्टार्टेड द पॉडकास्ट आप बोल रहे थे कि आप सोचते नंबर्स भी मैथ इंग्लिश में हो, बट आई एम श्योर जब पैसे की बात है तो रोकड़ा तो फिर माइंड में 1.25% 1.5% वो।
Actually, I think the good part, जब Dad made all of us go through the business side of things, right? He was very clear that education is the pillar on which we all will grow, right? So I think he encouraged us to think also in English, in numbers also, right? That was what. But his mental strengths were amazing. He could remember 5,000 customers, their articles, the amounts, all that in his head. Right. And
जब आप बता रहे हो अमाउंट्स एंड नंबर्स, मतलब व्हाट वाज द बिजनेस, क्या
so
करते
this
थे
was
आप?
pawnbroking, right? Against gold only. So he was the least risk-taking person, available there. So we didn't do hand loans or something. This was against a mortgage, right? Which is not even land or something, and anything valuable which is gold, right? So that was what the business was. And I think whatever I learned is the B school for me while I did my ISB. But वहीं से I think was the main learning of what I stand today.
बिजनेस फैमिली से जब आते हैं तो ये एक पॉजिटिव चीज़ होती है। मैं हमेशा ये बात करता हूँ कि एनीवन हु इज़ डूइंग बिजनेस एंड हु हैज़ कम फ्रॉम अ फैमिली विच इज़ इनटू जॉब्स, दे हैव एक्चुअली स्ट्रगल्ड अ लॉट, आई प्रॉब्ली प्रेज्यूम सो, क्योंकि बिजनेस फैमिली में तो हम पूरा दिन ही बिजनेस में ही सोचते हैं। बच्चों को मैं अगर 100 रुपये दे रहा हूँ तो मैं हिसाब कर रहा हूँ कि बेटे से क्या ROI निकलेगा,
Sure.
क्यों ले रहे हो पैसे, क्या फ़ायदा, हर चीज़ में फ़ायदा मुनाफा ये सब चीज़ें चलती
So
हैं।
question for you is, how did your dad emphasize on education with your whole family being in business? And
Yeah. So the part of the family which I'll allude to is a large family, right? And I think all of us are at least masters, right? I happen to do 2 masters, some did PhD, etc., right? So I think his idea was clear that each one has to stand on their own, right? And we do come from very humble beginnings, so and today where we stand, I think due credit to his futuristic outlook that how education will support that, right? Though मैं कभी भी I always wanted to grow the धंधा. That was my main idea.
You still wish?
I still wish. I think there was a huge scope, but we did not. I think he saw the struggles. Obviously, that's a problem, right? You see the struggles, you don't want your next generation.
आप धंधा next level में कर रहे हो अभी.
Correct. And मैं in fact, what let's say the with names, right, Muthuts or others are doing, I had that very idea to do it, right? And I told him, look, it's a huge space, right? Everyone wants to borrow money, and we used to do it at 12%, 16%.
1%, 1.25%.
So, it was amazing. And I think the goodwill that the business did, I think that I haven't seen, In fact, I tell my founders, right, if I were to tell you one thing, that's a goodwill, right? Let's make sure your stakeholders have that, right? You and your stakeholders. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It will come back to you.
Does goodwill in your business translate to success? Meaning you can't lose your clients' money.
Okay, so in my business, when you say venture capital industry, right? See, my main idea behind this whole venture capital industry was two things, right? One, to learn. It was very interesting to see so many different ideas, so many people working in so many different things, right? The other was to try and build things, right? So I think the goodwill, when I'm suggesting here, yes, you are definitely right that my investors should be protected and, hopefully make returns which are better than the market. But I think overall, everyone should also participate in the whole process. Like I have many of my limited partners, which we call investors, who actually are actively working along or, attend events, etc., learn about it, right? It's not only about the money, while money is an important part. See, the reason why startup investment is interesting, unlike, let's say, a real estate or a share market, is you can actually be a part of something.
Your problem solving.
And you learn a new thing, and especially you're doing something in your 9 to 6, you want to do something more, right? And that itch is there everywhere, right? People say in the West, people put 10% of their money in such alternate funds, right? India is still catching up. But I think it's to do with the itch of doing something more, which we all have in general, right? Might be some have it as a spiritual feeling, some might have it as sports, some might have it as, the startup ecosystem.
So was this itch there when you're doing your master's or?
Oh, definitely. I think, okay, so what happened, which is very interesting, right? Semiconductor companies. So I moved to about 3 or 4 companies because of acquisitions, right? So I didn't actually
wanted.
Where did you start with?
So I started, okay, so my journey is Synopsys, then Intel, and then I moved to Connexent, which got acquired by NXP, which got acquired, or
so Synopsys used to build EDA tools.
EDA tools.
And Intel acquired that.
No, there was no acquisition. I moved, right? Intel also I moved to Connexent, but from Connexent was a series of acquisitions, and even at Intel, right? We were working on a project, 500 engineers over 4 years, and the project was canned. Okay, so and it got me thinking, right? What is happening in this whole business?
It really sucks.
Correct. So that's when I moved to Connexent to see smaller life cycles. We were building a multiprocessor which would be used in servers to,
Was it the Titanium time? Or?
No, yeah, might be a little before that. And then I moved to set-top boxes, which is Connexent, right? Smaller life cycles. But again,
that's for the satellite, the cable TV.
Correct, the cable TV, the high definition, there was digitization across the world and all that, right? And that's when, even then, I couldn't see cycles. I could only see these acquisitions happening. There were times that I could go and play badminton between 2 to 4 during those times. That was how flux was, right? So that's got me thinking a lot more about business. And I was like, I need to contribute a little more than what I'm doing today, right? One part of, I'm looking at an HDMI port or a USB port versus I am looking at businesses. There was different ball games. I think, but the trajectories are very different. If you see just money, might be given the shortage of people in semiconductor, I might be a little better off if I continued that trajectory, right? Just by money.
Really, we all think VCs are glamorous and
Yeah.
flying and
We like to show that.
That's the life which is.
Yeah.
But there's a reality also. He's just trying to be down to
being
earth, modest.
No, what I mean is that let's say with all what we go through, right, and going in the semiconductor, and if you were earning in dollars, you would definitely do better off in general, right? On an average.
So was it the instability that got you thinking, should I be continuing in the semiconductor path?
So I think I always had that business itch, dhanda kuch to karna hai. Then this all thing left me to the MBA at ISB.
But before we go there, let's start off with the whole story of the whole journey.
Sure.
So I would like to know, where did Ajay Jain start his life from? Like, आप हैदराबाद से born and brought up, आपने ये बताया.
Correct.
So where did you do your schooling?
So I did my schooling. In fact, I joined directly from grade 2. That's another interesting fact about most of my siblings. We didn't do LKG, UKG first.
Is it because parents said 5, 6 तक घर पे रहो?
घर पे रहो, मतलब पढ़ लो, what's the big deal? Anyway, you're learning till ABCD. You could do better at the
अभी 3
shop.
साल से जाते हैं.
Yeah. So
2 साल से.
ठीक है.
Yeah.
Starts from play school.
So I remember my first day, like I held on to a rod and never wanted to go in the school, right? I started because it was new thing for me, right? Everyone wearing uniform, strict stuff going on. So so St. Anthony's High School in Himayatnagar, right? A pretty large school. So I compare that with my daughter's school these days, and I say, hey, your entire school and my one grade. So, but that's the population. I mean, that's the school thing comparison, right? And there was no 1:30 or something. This was 1:65.
I studied in Kendriya Vidyalaya Picket. So Maratpalli, huge campus. Now when I think, इतना बड़ा campus था.
But those days we had bigger schools, but kids classrooms फिर भी छोटे लगते थे because more kids in the classrooms. Now at least they are having 1:25, 30.
Yeah.
Though the schools open areas have reduced actually. Grounds
So
कम
this
हो गए.
school, specifically CV, has a large open area. That is the good part about them. But you're right, in general.
In general.
Yeah, real estate where it is, I don't see how you can. So that's the schooling part. Then LFJC, Little Flower Junior College.
Uppal?
Yes, Uppal.
CBIT के बाद आपका जो US का डिग्री है, that's the turning point in your life, I guess.
Turning point in the sense I realized you could study better even in your masters, even after you have completed your 10+2, right? And I think I realized the application level. I think that's where there's a huge gap today also, right? As in the education sector, our application level ideas are limited, right? And we do not educate in an application manner.
When you read theory without a sense of what problem you're solving, it'll float away. It'll fade away.
Right. So I think maths is my favorite, and I did brilliant in maths most times, and but when I realized I didn't do the application, right? And now today when I see, let's say, courses offered in the West, etc., they're clearly showing how math can be applied, right? And that's a very different.
I never understood integration, differentiation. क्यों काम में आएगा? When I was doing an inter, and for some reason my brain also rejected learning all that क्योंकि किस काम का है? Much later I regretted. Okay, I should have learned chupchap without asking questions, absorbed then later.
Yeah.
So I ended up reading a lot of my engineering 10 years into my job, coming back, digging back, and this is good. This is good stuff. I never left. I didn't learn at the right time, but okay, I learned my lesson down the line. Which subject were you a TA in?
Oh, very interesting. I was a TA for a subject in photonics, that's fiber optics, right? And I was a TA for a course which was offered to undergrads, grads, and PhDs. Right? So I had PhD students also that.
So were you running the lab or were you
No, I was
assignments?
Assignments and test papers, and some of the labs I was part of. I did my thesis also in the optical space. So that's what happened.
So post that, why ISB?
No, post that was semiconductor industry. 7 years.
So the whole
7 years was that, right? And then ISB.
And then you came back to India?
So I came back to India after 2-3 years of working there, and I was in Bangalore. then
That's 2009, 10, 9, 10.
6, 7, and then Hyderabad.
But there were very few people who would come back at that time.
Yeah, let me sum it up. Home is where the heart is. Home is where the heart is, right? So, one, I think the idea that India shining was happening. There was enough talk about semiconductor industry taking off in India also. And I think as I said, I always wanted to do something here, grow things here. See, it's clear, right? If you are an expat, even if only in the third generation would you feel like actually part of a society, right?
Two generation will struggle to fit in, will be confused and
Yeah.
So you mean to say जो recently गए हैं एक generation से रह रहे हैं, they're not primarily happy, or they're just adjusting or trying to prove that they didn't do mistakes?
See, I don't know. Happiness it's a relative term, right? I can be happy wherever, right? But see, I'll give you an example, right? My sister stayed there for 15 years or more, right? And she came back. Earlier, she used to do INR to USD, right? Today, she does USD to INR, right? Now she buys clothes from...
Some example? I couldn't quickly understand the point.
She buys clothes from the US because she realizes they are cheaper nowadays, right? And better quality.
That's a new...
Right? And when you went there, you thought $5 idli, bhaiya. You always converted 5 into, at that time, 60
rupees,
or
60,
50, right? भाई 250 की इडली तो खानी नहीं है, क्या करें वैसे, right? Now
it's 200, 250 here also.
Yeah,
like,
and you're converting back. अरे $2 में तो taco मिलता था, right? So I'm saying that's why they call that ABCD, right?
So in short, आप जो बता रहे हो, this is a new thing for most people. I'm sure जो हमेशा सोचते रहते हैं कि US में रहने वाले को क्या ही है भाई, उसको तो डॉलर में मिलता है. So now things have actually changed, right?
Oh no,
it's a tough life.
Now, see, tough again. I wouldn't use those terms. See, I think US has its advantages, right? And obviously no country today can offer what they can offer, right? So that is undoubtedly there from terms of education, possibilities, access, things like that. Healthcare is debatable, but might be Europe is better. I don't know. Healthcare is debatable.
I think no system is perfect.
Correct. And again, depends on your stature in the country, right? Healthcare ke liye. But yeah, if you really want to start something on your own, etc., and or see, the question is, would you want to lead a life where you don't have any servants, or whether you want any servants, right? Now that's the defining point.
Convenience comes at a cost.
Correct, right? Doesn't look like we are going away from that place where we'll ever not have help, right? We are still, whatever it costs might increase, but we still continue to be there. There you can't afford. Very simple, right?
You were also a part of T-Hub. So what was that? And when you say lagging, then this is the most progressive part of Hyderabad, the T-Hub.
Sure. Oh, yeah. I think when we did what we did in 2015 to 17, right? I think it was way ahead of times. And even today, most people look at T-Hub and try to get some inspiration, etc., right? And I think so it was an amazing idea, right? Let's say this, right? Hyderabad mein real estate is such a gold mine.
It's the only gold mine, I would say.
Sure. You should know better.
No, I'm just saying, पूरी government बदल जाती है just because of real estate. Yeah. Just make some promises and get things done.
So now what happens is still the money doesn't go everywhere else, right? Either gold or real estate. That's where the money is. So that's where there is a big gap, right? Today, while I have quite a few investors from Hyderabad, but still it's not so progressive to write checks, etc., as let's say a Bangalore or a Delhi or a Bombay is, right? So that way there is a gap. Obviously we've seen there is money. The Hurran list or whatever that is has come out with
30 people. There was a big change in the Hurran list of Hyderabad's.
So there is money. The question is, why doesn't it come into several segments? And there, I think there's a gap.
You're an investment banker. What does your portfolio look like?
Oh, I'm not an investment banker. Honestly, I'm very biased towards startups, right? And I don't understand.
Where do your investment? Do you invest in land?
I've invested some in real estate.
Land or
nothing like no, I can't do land and all because I don't have the ability to whatever to protect or legally.
But these days the whole situation in Hyderabad has transformed. When I compare Hyderabad to Bangalore, मेरा point of view है ये, I feel Hyderabad or Telangana is much safer when compared to Bangalore based on people have spoken to. All the Gujaratis, वो Bangalore वाले बेचारे हमारे रिश्तेदार सारे रोते रहते हैं कि यार यहाँ लफड़ा हो गया, वहाँ लफड़ा हो गया. Hyderabad is all sorted कि अपनी ज़मीनें safe है. One. Second, we have new concept of branded lands. Like bigger developers are buying, like example Aparna or Rajpushpa, whoever, they are buying big pieces of land and they're selling it to the retailers. At least वो safe है. And I feel land is the best asset when compared to people buying a residential flat, taking a 20 years EMI or 20 years of headache. Land, I know you need to do initial payment itself. There's no loan option in that. Of course, if you have some liquidity, land gives you unlimited upside. While this keeps depreciating and EMI keeps appreciating.
Yeah, see, I think those who deal with it and have the time, I tell people I don't have the time. That's the main problem.
And
Right.
it's not the area of expertise.
Yeah, so I can't do a due diligence, right? So that's my thing. I mean, you have litigation on 100 crore lands also, right? So why does that happen? Obviously, there's some due diligence somewhere going wrong. So I think that is not. So I don't have time for stock market. I don't have time for land.
You don't have time for stock market?
I don't. I don't. Meaning I haven't put time effort. So I don't do
He's
much.
investing in the same stocks way before. Why would he care about क्या last वाले?
So I
Stock market is where the
do-
last guys invest. हम लोग जाते
No,
हैं.
I think again, see, with all respect to those who play in that game, right? One thing I learned is, anyway, whoever plays how much ever, there's an upside which is, let's say, universal at 15%, whatever, right? You rarely will beat that beyond a point.
You won't beat that average. Huge.
Correct. And second was, I realized that I might not be as patient in the markets because I get too much, carried away with information. And that's the opposite with startups for me. I can wait for 7 years. And
And when you understand their business, you feel a bit more in control of the outcome.
definitely, right? And I don't think, again, I didn't give time to it. So
You have a challenge of convincing that funding or investing in a VC is more profitable than land.
stats show that.
We'll eventually go there because my problem is, see, if I invest in a startup, so I started investing in few AIFs recently,
Sure.
which are small ticket size compared to what you guys do. Like I saw that you average invest like 2 to 4 crores in a startup and all that stuff.
Sure.
यहाँ पे तो fractional shares होता है 1 crore का ticket size, but I know that it's something which is going to give me result in 7 years or it's gone. Land नहीं चल रहा है तो छोड़ दो, बेटे को दे देता हूँ, 20 साल के बाद तो कुछ निकलेगा ही.
Sure.
So that's my logic
See,
reason
that's
behind.
what I think. If we only consider returns, right? If that's the only parameter we are discussing, right? Usually, that's where all these guys talk about well-rounded investment, right? कि आप 30% मार्केट में डालो, 30% लैंड में डालो, 20% गोल्ड में डालो.
Diversify करो.
तो वो that is where I think that's what I said. The 10% goes into startups.
Right.
Right now, let's say, as you say, there's a bubble and land suddenly goes south, right? You have this hedging or whatever, right? So that's the whole thing. But again, that's what I'm saying. If the parameter for investment is just, see, now
returns.
let me tell you what happens, right? When there are large family offices, their parameters is first their capital
Preservation.
Right? So that's their first thought. So, for example, they will do a lot in debt funds.
Yep.
Right? Less risk. Like even venture funds have venture debt funds.
Yeah.
Right? So they will put their money there because for them that's a lower risk.
They
right?
get a yearly
They'll get
coupon and
returns
some-
less.
yeah.
So you'll have to see. Now, our fund, for example, while I don't know what numbers you were saying, you can come in our fund at 25 lakhs also as an investor. Right?
Okay.
But our fund, for example, I'm saying, hey, look, like let's say 60% of my LPs are such that they want to only invest and hopefully see great returns. But the rest 40 want to be a little more active. Right? They want to understand this whole ecosystem, right? So for them, the investment is not only the return, investment has more metrics to it, right? So I think that vision is important, right?
But how does that scale LPs wanting to be more involved? You can't have too many LPs getting involved in a company.
Or not only in the company, they want to get involved in the startup ecosystem. Some will get involved in my portfolio companies, some will get involved in the startup ecosystem. Like my friend in Delhi recently signed up with us. Right, so he wants to understand the ecosystem better. So wherever there's an event which I get an invite, I am not able to attend, I'm happy to send him, right? And that's a different experience for them.
No, that definitely connects. If you remember, I was telling you, I have been trying to invest in different restaurants. The reason was not to make money out of it, to actually get into that area, to understand how they are, understand.
First-hand information.
I get data. I can understand what kind of agencies they are working with to take care of all the consultants' data.
Yeah.
If I go as an outsider, I would be charged a premium on it. Here, I could take a stake and also get
and
first-hand
some of
data.
these, like he's saying, also want to do their own startup. In fact,
exactly.
2 of my investors from the US who have invested with me, and now they're running their startups.
So they invest to understand the psyche of the VC and how they operate.
Just get the ecosystem, right? What happens? How do you raise money versus what happens? What are the updates? What is the industry talking about? Or what is valuation? Right? Things which might be relatively new to many, right? Especially coming from an IT background. They might find such terms new, etc. So, yeah.
So founders and VC relationship, is it an arranged marriage or a love marriage?
Yeah. So in our case, we are very clear that, tending towards the love, is we are very hands-on as a venture fund, right? So we are, my founders can call me any day, etc., right? So they're very close, and we try to help them through things. Obviously, you also show them the mirror at times, right? So you show them, what's the truth at times. So I call myself one of those persons who like to tell you, hey, look, this is the mirror. Now you decide what you want to do. I wouldn't really point the direction, but I would point you what's reflection of yours, right? So we are very hands-on, and we are in the angel investment space. We are not about numbers. We are more about people.
So Ajay, circling back to your ISB, and when did you start your VC thing? Because यहाँ पे पैसे की ज़रूरत है, and you started off as an angel investor. The whole company which you are running now is a 2000 recently opened company. But when did you start off? और घर से पैसा लिया था या कैसे शुरुआत की?
One more track is why ISB? Why not something in the US?
See, I think that's a good question. Because I already had exposure to the US, and US usually has this 2 years MBA, right? ISB gave this amazing 11-month, so your opportunity cost, etc. If you sum up, it's not too bad. So that was the idea, right? But yeah, normally if I didn't have international exposure, I would have considered other places, like, even in INSEAD or something. So that was the... Coming back to your thing, very interestingly, so I started my whole thing at ISB when I was a student. I debt funded a startup in the clean energy space. It was run by my alum. So one of my school friends, who's a businessman himself in Hyderabad, and I together gave them money.
So debt fund means Vyaj.
Yeah. Against interest, correct. Vyaj. Against a decent interest, because there's higher risk. So not like my gold one, but a higher one, right? And so, yeah, I got the courage because my friend participated in it. So both of us together gave them money.
How much was it? Like first investment?
It was small, so it was about 25 lakhs.
That's a huge.
Small nahi hai.
He's comparing it with his numbers
Correct,
of current
yes,
level.
and also it was against a letter of intent. So they had, I think Taj or someone given them a PO.
Okay.
Right. So they had to fulfill that. So there was very little risk.
So it was more like a business credit which he needed. Working capital.
Correct, working capital. But obviously banks and all have their own.
They wouldn't give it
easily.
Compared to the current world. Abhi de dete hain.
Correct. Even now they have their own requirement, but still, yeah. So we gave them, and in fact we were very keen on the business. We wanted to actually be part of it. We wanted to be involved more. We wanted to convert our money into equity and all that. But it so happened they won an award at a TIE event, and a term sheet from such an event, and they gave us the same term sheet. And we said that's not fair. You can't give me something that's like a award thing, right? People are standing on stage and giving you some term sheet which is not the correct term sheet. So that's where it didn't work out. Then I was part of some angel networks, doing very small investments, and these are really small, so let's say 2-4 lakhs, etc. And learn. I mean, just being part of it. But I had my own edtech startup, so that is what was keeping me busy, raising money for that, etc. That was the learning experience, I think. So
you're raising money, you're also investing in others?
That was the itch, but this was the main thing, right?
Okay.
Do founders reach out to you asking for money because they want to make a lot of money with a startup, selling a startup?
See, I think
Is money the objective sometimes?
not necessarily, and mostly I would stay away from founders who see money as the objective.
How do you identify that?
You talk to them. I think that's what you do. We do talk to them quite over a few meetings to understand their psyche.
So you see whether there's passion or...
Yeah, passion or detached passion, whatever that is, but it is more an interest to solve something, right? And you see the problem yourself.
Through their eyes.
Yeah, and you have to feel it, right? There is a problem out there, I want to solve it. Like, I think that days of Me Too have gone, in the sense, when I say Me Too here, is the idea of copying the West, right? Is almost gone. Right now you have to solve for what problems are in India, what problems you're facing from a regular perspective, what's the market demands, etc. Right? So that's the shift that is happening, which is a good shift, right? And I think we appreciate such founders. Finally, see, it's about, as I said, right? I mean, okay, so venture fund is a power law game, right? This is not an average or a bell curve game, right? I want 2 of my startups to do successful, then I make my money and I give my investors
2 of 10?
2 of 20.
50?
20 is the
So 1 of
present
10.
fund, right?
10%.
1 of 10, yeah. And I'm talking about the bumper returns, right? The others will do good, but I'm talking about the 2 of 20, which will give me a 40x, right?
What are all the different ways in which these 9 fail? Do they have different...
No, see, the failure term itself is, that has to be defined, and it's not easy.
Failure in your metrics.
Okay, so let's say for failure for me is anyone not giving me 2x and above, right? So the rest 9 don't fail that way. Only, let's say, 4 of them might fail, right? Out of those 10. The rest might give me 4x, 6x, 10x and all.
So the overall average of 7 years for the whole
No, see,
set?
here we talk about multiples usually, or the IRR, right? Average might be a tricky term, right? So either you talk about a 3 to 5x or a 25% kind of an IRR is what you expect.
Which is way high than what a person like me makes in the stock market, which is 14 to 15%.
Correct.
And whatever you're referring is post-tax? Pre-tax?
It depends on, it's pre-tax, it depends on how you handle it, but yeah. Where we are a long-term capital gain, and with the new rules, you're not losing a lot. Right? Valuations is not such a big discussion point. In the sense, it is a discussion point, but
It's a long game in your case.
yeah, and I tell people, in fact, okay, so let me tell you this. I started my whole journey in this by myself when I took one of my portfolio companies, which is Disperse, to a couple of angel networks in Hyderabad. The reason they didn't want to invest is they wanted a 10 crore valuation. The guy was saying 15 crore. मैं बोला भैया, you guys you don't understand. I mean, I am not able to appreciate what you think. I am going in. So that's when Exceed. So Exceed was my first avatar of investment. So that's when Exceed was found with a group of school friends and all that, right? And it was clear that see, 1% here or there in the long run would matter little. I understand with rights and all today, I understand why it matters, but you can't really keep debating on that, right? And today we use a lot of CCPS kind of instruments, so a convertible note, a safe note. Basically a safe note which is in the US, you postpone the valuation towards the next round, right? That's the idea. So instead of saying, hey, look, today your valuation is 40 crores, I say when you raise the next round, your valuation will be between 30 and 60 crores and I'll get a discount of, let's say, 20%, right? At that valuation on that day, right? So that's postponing the valuation, right? And that's a pretty neat instrument. So we use that a lot more than a direct equity.
So it removes the negotiation at that point when they need money on what their current
It
valuation
does not
is. And,
remove the entire negotiation. You're still putting a floor and a ceiling,
but you don't need to haggle on the exact number.
So that's the idea, right? And I think that's a neat method. So in general, at this early stage, valuation is sure it's a good point to discuss, but beyond the point, I wouldn't.
Everything is speculative.
Right. See, speculative, even later stage, we have seen billions of dollars go overnight south. So, that's also questionable why it is like that. So, but to your point, right, I think, see, we are clearly value-based investing, not in the stock market way, but in the startups. So we believe in the idea of unit economics. We clearly wouldn't invest beyond the point, I can't invest in a logistics startup, right? I don't understand where's the end game, and I'm not a deep pockets game, right? So I cannot keep funding them forever. So
You spoke about bias. What about domain bias? Are you biased towards certain domains because
definitely, we not only we understand, we can support. So we like B2B SaaS, for example, right? So that's where we are. If he says a restaurant business, I don't know anything. I always think, why do they even open a restaurant when they'll close in 3 years, right? That's my.
मतलब ROC is in 18 months, 15 months. उसके बाद profit ही profit. अगर 3 साल के बाद निकल गया.
But
So
I rarely see those, right? I mean, I see those new guys coming and closing. So that's where मुझे नहीं समझता, right? I'm not able to comprehend the numbers, right?
But since you mentioned you focus more on SaaS and these areas, what about AI?
Yeah,
अब
so we
trend
have-
पूरा AI shift हो रहा है.
Yeah, we have invested in three generative AI companies, right? We have Dhruva Space, which is a space tech company, right?
Okay.
We are looking at a 5G company, right? So deep technology is a space we like. B2B SaaS is obviously horizontal. Deeper technologies we like. Fintech we like.
So let's talk about your company, Silver Needle. What's the reason? मतलब logic behind the name? Silver Spoon सुना है मैंने. Silver Needle
Sure.
कभी देखी भी
I'm
नहीं है.
assuming needle in a haystack and it's a silver needle.
No, you're giving him ideas.
No, I think the name.
And who are your partners and
Sure. Sure. So the name, in fact, is a icebreaker, right? In that sense. So what happened is we were sitting in coffee shops. We wanted something to do with coffee. Everything was taken, right? Right from Java to Araku. That's when we decided. So one of my investors and close mentor, he had Silver Needle white tea at home. So that's the context of the name, right? So we were juggling with names, and everything seemed to be taken. So this seemed to be a nice.
Is it like the Apple story?
So tell me one thing. The way how startups keep looking forward to VCs like gods, कुछ दे दो पैसा. क्या VCs किसी के पास जाते हैं?
Oh yeah. See, if I like
And
a startup,
where do they go?
Oh no. See, one is our investors, right? उनके बिना हम नहीं हैं.
Okay.
Correct. Right. So I need the money from them to run my business.
So it's not purely that you're running with your own money.
No. I mean, why would I launch a fund if I'm running with my own money? Right? I mean, the whole idea. Today I take money from US. I have various.
So it's like a
LPs.
PMS and all these products. Like you take a small
So we
service
are
fee.
No. Okay. So we are a SEBI registered fund, right?
Right.
So I have a license from SEBI, and I can take money from any investor with some
RW.
request,
Okay.
with some requirements, right? So, okay, how the VC business model works, we take a management fee,
Yep.
which is to run the fund, and then we take a carry, which is a profit sharing of the upside,
Right.
right? That is how it works. So, that's
What does the management fee look like?
in our case, somewhere around the 2%.
Okay. Annual too.
With carry, it
Annual
goes up to
2%.
2.5, 3.
No,
I mean,
with carry, no. I mean, okay, so that's a difficult thing to say. So, carry is, see, I think.
I mean, my PMS, I'm coming from my PMS data. So one of the one which gave me last 3 years, 34%
Nice.
CAGR. Average with around 3% because of the carry
Okay.
concept. And that's when my advisor said, sir, अब fixed ले लिया होता पहले 2.5 वाला तो it would have been better. Why did you go with 1.75? I said, I don't know. The market Ukraine war has came in and I was worried कि कितना रिटर्न आएगा तो आई वांटेड टू गो सेफ. आई सेड जो बनाओगे उस पे ले लो.
So, see, the thing is simple. Ki, let's say you have invested 100 rupees with us. I gave you back 400 rupees after 4 years. So first I give you the hurdle rate, which is 10%. hurdle rate, right? Which is the minimum that I'll give you before I take any profit.
Okay.
ठीक है, तो आप 100 रुपए डाले,
10 रुपए
10 रुपए नहीं, 4 साल में 150 लेट से,
राइट
250 रुपए बचे, 250 I will divide in 20/80. So I will keep 50 rupees, you will get 200. So 350 आपको, मुझे 50. The hurdle rate is saying without that number, without that 150, I'll not make any money. Right? So I think one of the most fair distribution mechanisms, if there was, right, in terms of I am only earning once you start earning beyond a number.
So when we talk about mutual funds, is a different discussion. It's a very passive way of investing. I just want to learn from you. What I learned from my advisor was PMS is not. He is not accepting to this. But what I learned is PMS is a 3 years game. 3 साल में जितना पैसा आया निकाल दो, फिर switch the plan. But when it comes to AIF, which is your area, which is alternate investment fund. There it's a cycle of 6 to 7 years. So if you are ready to go for that long, तभी आप इन्वेस्ट करो. बट मुझे एक चीज़ याद आई, आपने बताया 25 लाख से भी इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हो, और मुझे जो पता था 1 crore मिनिमम फंड है. सो व्हाट्स द क्लैरिटी देयर लाइक?
So we are a Cat 1 angel fund. A venture fund, VCF, it has a 1 crore minimum requirement. We are a angel fund. That's just the license what we have.
Okay.
That's the difference.
So angel is the early round of investing in startups, and which means higher returns, higher risk, smaller investment option is also available. Is that how it is?
Might be to a generalization, yes, but we also play with the VCFs. That's not a difference, but sure, in general, that's where it is.
So VCFs, is it?
Venture capital fund.
Okay. So that comes in Series A, Series B.
There is no such definition. देखिए, Series A, Series B का ही definition नहीं है ना. There's nothing like, Series A has to be 10 million or Series A has to be 1 million.
I imagine one is about product market fit and Series B is about scaling. ऐसा कुछ.
No, in fact, this is a misconception. In my head, PMF, right? And there are various views to it. PMF happens, product market fit happens not before Series B or C, right? Because PMF you have achieved means you are saying you are not really, burning money.
You're getting some revenue.
No. See, revenue you can get even with the prototype, right? See, the idea of PMF is I really don't have to burn so much money. My CAC will start going down, right?
Yes.
Is customer acquisition cost, right? It has to keep declining, right? Which means people are actually wanting my product, or they know, right, what is the product.
General awareness that it's selling it.
And it is beyond the early adopters, right? So PMF has a very beautiful connotation from a marketing perspective, right? It is where you are saying, okay, look, I'll go bang, I'll go broadcast, I'll even use a newspaper, right? Because then I know people will come to me, right?
So you're not building, for example, if you're taking out an ad in a newspaper, it's not for building awareness, but to actually get sales.
Mostly yes, right? And so I'm saying it doesn't happen early, right? It's not easy for a company because from there you have to really scale, right? And then grow, right? Otherwise, so then the investors are giving you money only for marketing, right? Only for brand building, things like that, right? Earlier I was giving you for building the product, etc., right? And actually going out and showing it. So that's the difference. But Series A, B, C are not defined well. They are just terms used. कि भाई यहाँ शुरू हुआ, यहाँ हुआ, round 1, round 2, round 3, right? But there's some semblance to it. There's some feeling to it.
But some expectation there would be some implicit meaning, right? Someone is Series C, someone is Series B.
Yes, so the implicit meanings are, one, you have raised some amount earlier, right? And you have raised from institutions before, right? That is one. 2 is you are at least, let's say, 3-5 years into the startup, etc. But remember, different segments like life sciences will be very different. Like Series C also are not even building the molecule, right? So that's a very different space, right? Space tech, for example, right? Most space tech companies don't have revenues, right? So you are not even talking about.
So as a part of your portfolio, do you try to have a mix where there'll be some companies where you can see early revenue?
Oh, definitely.
And some will gestate for more time, and then you have this train of exits and entries
That was
It's a circle.
That's a good
Capital.
point. I want to cover that earlier also. So one is, yes, we do our portfolio management like any fund manager, right? So we say, acha bhai, we have some early stage, some late stage, and this is how we are balancing. Some are high risk, some are low risk, right? Second is, we usually invest post early revenues. So we don't even invest pre-revenue unless it's a specific segment or we really like the space.
Post early revenue means that they are getting some money from some clients. There is something there.
Yeah.
It's not just Hava and
Advance from a projection sheet.
Yeah, and they have an offering which is out in the market.
someone is paying something.
Correct. So that's where we come in. We don't come in before that usually, right? And then so to that point, right? So 7 years, while you say yes, my fund life is 7 + 2 years, but usually what happens is, let's say from the 5th year you'll start seeing some exits, and whenever we get an exit, we give back the money to the investor. So there's no hard and fast rule कि 7th year में ही आपको पैसे मिलेगा. From the 4th, whenever we get an exit, we'll give you back some of the money, depending on how the exits
But
happen.
how do we know what's the right place to invest? I mean, I'm asking you because I didn't even know, and I had invested in an AIF in 2011 or 12 of 25 lakh rupees, something called a Sunrise Fund or something. And पहले तो 2 साल तक वो पैसे आराम से लेते थे. मैंने कहा ऐसा कौन है भाई, LIC वाले भी चेक तभी लेके जाते थे. ये तो आराम से बोलते 3 महीने के बाद you give me another check of 5 lakh rupees, small amounts. I mean in small installments.
Sure.
And then 2 साल के बाद कुछ एग्जिट हो रहा है, कहीं कोई SMS परिवर्तन कोई कंपनी का कहीं एग्जिट हुआ, आई एम गेटिंग अ बैलेंस शीट, आई गेट अ होल बुक दोज डेज, and they were sending me back money saying that we have closed this company, we have shut down this partnership with this company or whatever. कंपनी बंद हो गई, राइट ऑफ किया, जो पैसा आ रहा है. तो आई वाज लाइक इतना पेशेंस किसके पास है कि 7 साल तक वेट करें. एंड नाउ देयर इज आल्सो 2 years of additional time in case you're not exiting it.
But I didn't understand something here. You have a train of exits, entries and exits. I may have invested in year 3, right? Year 4, maybe you sold some other company.
You can exit in the middle. They announce a round, if I'm not wrong, and they announce the fund, and within a
No,
year
there
or
are
two,
various types of funds. So one is a rolling fund, one is a more close-ended fund, etc. But okay, to your point, right? Obviously, the fund industry is an evolved industry, so we have taken care of all those logistics or nuances that you're getting to. See, the concept of IRR or the hurdle rate that I said already takes into account the time when you come in. So, let's say someone came in 22 versus someone came in 24. I started giving back money in 2030. The guy in 22 will calculate hurdle rate for 8 years. You will calculate for 6 years. So those calculations are built in, right? The other thing is we do our NAV calculations once a year or on any incident, right? So if the NAV goes up, we will charge you accordingly if you're a new investor, right? So that there is a...
So there's no traceability of, say, I invested 25 lakhs. I won't really know into which companies this went into.
you get a quarterly statement.
You get a quarterly update. You get financial audited statements. We are the most regularized entity in the country, if I may. Right? We have everything to be reported back to investor or to the SEBI. So
That's what
Like,
my
for
advisor
example-
said. Both sides we are hit. Like investors also question us. The government also questions us.
for example, in a mutual fund, you will never read the prospectus, right? For us, we are mandated to send you the prospectus in digital copy, and our contribution agreement, which you sign, is a 45-pager, right? So,
Do people read the fine print?
oh, they do. I mean, some of them ask questions also. I am like, boss, this is the standard one. Yeah, this is the standard one. You want to ask questions? Sure, but this is what SEBI has.
So as a VC investor, like you go through a lot of effort in researching and पूरा आपने figure out किया कि ये startup में पैसा डालना है नहीं डालना है. What do you think went wrong with Paytm's investor? They took a big negative exit. And at that scale, how could
Again,
they
see,
do this?
I'm not a markets guy, so I'm not the best person to answer to that, right? But I'll leave you with two thoughts right here. One is the venture industry is a relay game, right? Which means that I pass the baton to someone passes it on, etc. Right? I don't stay till mostly funds like me.
Musical chairs?
No, relay race, right? Mostly funds like me don't stay till the IPO, right? So that is usually we are exited before, right? So
Do you generally exit after 1-2 rounds of funding? or
We see that if we have a choice, then we discuss how is the fund. In fact, we also do follow-on investments. So 30% of our fund we'll do for just follow-on investments, right? So, but and we have our IC committee which will decide whether to exit, when to exit, and all that. So those details are
ICs?
investment committee. Sorry, yeah.
So when I look at the PMS industry, and एक चीज़ मैंने correlate की है. There is one PMS which I had invested long back, which was ASK Investments, and it grew so big that now they are not able to perform what they used to perform earlier. So is that a problem in the VC industry also?
Oh, yeah.
Once it grows to such a big level, now it's hard
I
to
think
even prove.
replicating success at the same rate.
Yeah.
No, there are 2-3 points to that. I think one is research has shown what you have suggested. Larger VCs are not able to return as much as smaller VCs are, right? Now, might be the reason are 2-3 things, right? One is at the later stage, your hit rate has to go up, right? Or basically, see, you're talking about a multiple of 2x, 3x, 4x. You're not talking about a 40x, right? A SoftBank 2x, 3x is great, right? So that's where they are hitting, right? Now, but if 2 fail, they are in a soup, right? So that's one side of that problem that you're talking about. The other problem is the fee structures, earlier at least. Now, let's say 100 crore ka 2% is 2 crores, but वही 100 million ka 2% is 2 million, right? Now, the amount of money that is actually being invested and is being run in the market goes pretty low when larger funds get fee structures which are pretty... See, basically for me to make up for my fee loss in my fund is a little easier than for a larger fund to make up for a 20 million or a 15 million fee loss over the years, right? So for them, the multiple has to be better, right? And we are talking again law of large numbers.
Saying they have to take more risk, but probably their appetite for risk also is lower as the fund grows.
Yeah, they cannot afford to take higher risks like how we
They cannot take high risk because they are too big now.
Yeah. The second is they cannot, their structures in the teams, now things are changing, but were higher. So they had, like how we was talking about the startup, they will have, reports being generated and lists being there, etc., which might be after a point is just add-ons. It's not the core of the business. I'm not saying, we also generate reports and all.
Inefficiency just creeps into the system.
I don't know if it is inefficiency, but I'll say add-ons, right? So they are there, and that affects the...
This is one reason why whenever I talk about mutual funds, people say, where should I invest? My thought process, I always invest in NFOs. Why? Because जो नया लड़का आया है, जो भी फंड मैनेजर है, वो आउट परफॉर्म करेगा, सबको प्रूव करेगा कि आई एम डूइंग समथिंग गुड. लाइक मोतीलाल का जो बंदा है या लोग भी नए बंदे हैं, दे विल ट्राई टू आउट परफॉर्म. व्हाइल कंपेयर्ड टू द अदर ओल्डर फंड्स, दे जस्ट मूविंग ऑन. द AUM is increasing.
That might be a feeling also, right? That I want to really prove from my first fund at least, right? Because otherwise my second fund will not even...
And I exit after a year or two. So I feel that I have always seen better data. Maybe I should push that data through AI and say that look at 500 funds, the ones which have been in the market versus the new ones, and that correlates to all the VC funds also.
Yeah. So that so not new versus old, but it's the size usually. That's
generally
where,
smaller ones.
Generally smaller ones have done better than larger ones.
But then sometimes quant like big funds are also outperforming others.
Sure. No, in fact, like the more larger funds are venture debts, etc. They do pretty well actually in the markets where they are. So.
We are again talking about two different industries. I am talking about the listed industry, जहाँ पर these larger funds are making good money sometimes, maybe through insider trading, while you guys are sitting inside of the startup offices, so
No, and I think the larger funds also, might be they have the ability, not necessarily insider trading, but information, and might be ability
access
to move a few things. So yes, that obviously
experience counts, their
connects count, network, all that counts. Obviously, even in this industry, it counts.
Do you see challenges in replicating success to scale? Does it mean replicating your thought process in the team, finding someone who thinks
like that? No, not really. I think that the challenge is how do you want to grow, right? Do you want to grow as, like he said, larger fund, series of smaller funds, things like that? Those are the questions that you have, right? But otherwise, I think, it's too early to think on those lines. But yeah, I think the question is, let's say, do you cross a 500 crore or not, right? As the next one, and that's a large question, right? Because it means something from a return perspective.
So Ajay, we are around the end of today's podcast. So I would like to, Venu has already asked that question. I generally ask at around the end. So where do you invest your personal money? You're running Silver Needle as a firm, as your partners, everyone running there. So if you have your savings, do you put it in the stock market? Is it gold, or how do you diversify?
Yeah. So with good advice from my wife, I think gold has been recent.
Physical SGBs?
Physical. Again, that whole idea of having gold is a good one. Obviously, I've done some real estate.
When I look at VCs, my perception of sizing also comes in. So when you say physical, so I have to visualize something bigger.
The good thing with gold is even small, if you visualize, you're seeing a lot.
Nowadays, I agree.
No, I'm just no. So there's not too much there, right? See, I have that way. Let's say I have done beyond my abilities or beyond my capabilities from an economics perspective in the VC industry, right?
Okay.
And that is all to do with the backing that I have from some close people. All their faith in me is what has...
The goodwill is working.
The goodwill is working. So otherwise, no, I don't think I am a true VC that way, in the sense of, putting... But I have put money where my mouth is. So, most of my investment, let's say 30-40% of it is in the startup world.
So in the fast moving world is what you're saying. Gold is a slow asset. It's a guaranteed long term. You have put gold in the consumption area, which how much you need, you have put it.
Yeah.
And small percentage in...
So when you said 30% is invested in startups, do you invest in your own fund?
Oh yeah. Me and my team has invested 10% of the fund. So we have committed to... So we put money where our mouth is. And so I think I do some mutual funds and all that. But I don't understand the market, so so I do what everyone says, do SIP and all that, right?
Oh, why does a VC person, investor need a SIP? I mean, ये तो बहुत ही, it's like
Because
ये चिल्लर पे कौन ही ध्यान दे यार, मतलब हम तो बड़ा
time नहीं है, right? And then you want to diversify, right? You don't want to put all eggs in one basket. So as I said, I think that 30-40% is good enough as a diversification for startups, and then you do other things. If hell breaks loose, you have other things.
So no government bonds as such, or fixed deposits?
FDs, yeah, I think FDs are there. Obviously, they keep happening, the auto FDs.
Auto renewals.
Yeah.
But why an FD? I mean, when you know that it's negative thing.
Stupid. I agree it's a stupid thing, but it's better than nothing. Again, honestly speaking, it's time, I think. And one of my points, I think I should do better with my time, but again, and at times interest also, beyond a point, do you really want to think about different other things?
I spoke to an advisor called me. I won't name them, the agency. They said, we advise the advisors because they are too busy advising others. They need an advisor to take care of their money.
I've been asking banks to invest on my behalf, but looks like they're busy, so I haven't
I'm not sure if you had invested in Video or one of the generative AI companies from Hyderabad, one well-known similar name in video editing domain, and few VCs lost like millions of dollars.
Okay, so I have only one investment in Hyderabad, which is Dhruva Space.
Okay,
I don't have any other investments in Hyderabad as of today. My portfolio companies, 5 are in Bangalore, 3 in Mumbai, Pune.
Oh, there are others from Mumbai and Pune also. Is
it?
Okay.
So we are spread.
So what do you think is the future of your industry, considering that AI is coming in place? And when you say that you spend your time speaking to the founders, analyzing their documents and everything, and now we have AI in space, you just throw away all the data to it and say that, hey, इसमें पैसा डाले या ना डाले बता दो, ये आदमी कितना सच्चा है, look at his social profile, look at his whole thought process, how he thinks.
So from a venture capital industry, right? I think one thing that is happening is the ask from the LPs is becoming clearer and stricter, right? They want more accountability, they want lower fees, etc. So that's one side of the table. The other side of it is hopefully India is developing into a stage where we can have specialized funds, right? Let's say sustainability, let's say space, let's say defense, right? AI, whatever, right? So that
Sectoral funds.
sectoral, specialized and all. That that should happen a little more. The third thing that would happen is still we are a very small percentage of the entire venture fund industry, right, globally. Though there are these large unicorns that are getting all the money. So I think what will happen is more and more money will be pumped in. I don't see otherwise how innovation will happen. Our R&D is not as strong. So the government push is clearly at the startup space. The government recognizes it. I think due credit to the government, both centrally and otherwise, that they recognize the need, right? So I think that will power. In fact, we keep talking about the economy, $1 trillion, and all those numbers. Startups will have to play a role, right? How and what we'll see, but startups will have to play a role, and that's where looks like it's an interesting play. Some things that will happen is some of the funds will start either consolidating or closing. Lots of people with access to money have started opening funds.
Their own funds.
Why would VCs consolidate?
It's still a tough industry. It's not like everything is great with this industry, right? Like how it shows. So the consolidation happens because one, larger VCs want to come in and get access to smaller.
Okay, but not mergers as such. Mergers are not common.
Not mergers, but the other thing that would happen is also that there are operator VCs who are the true VCs, who are actually hands-on. There are others who are, let's say, CAs have access
Managing money.
They have access to 10 family offices. They can open a fund today, right? And they have no clue. They can't even invest in a B2B SaaS company because they don't see unit economics, right?
I know a CA who opened 3 well-known restaurants in Hyderabad, so I can relate to that. I was about to be an investor there, and all of a sudden the founder says, our CA is taking care of all the 3 branches. I'm talking about like 30 crores of investment, and his CA is doing that. I'm like, sahi hai yaar.
So that's what has happened in India. It's not true in the West. So, I hope that improves.
When you're referring to government policies, how has been your experience with KTR or the T-Hub? I mean, you're related to T-Hub, and have you had first-hand experience with KTR?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely had first-hand because he was very close to T-Hub, something close to him. I think the dynamism was clearly evident, right? With Jayesh Ranjan and KTR managing the whole thing, right? And as I said, it was a great first step towards building something, and it's iconic still, right? I mean,
after CBN's the tower, cyber towers, I think this was the next bigger step taken by.
Sure, yeah. So I think yes, and what? So, but I am not sure if both are comparable. One had Microsoft, the other had T-Hub, right? So I'm not very sure.
That guy took the first step, and
Sure.
when you came back from Singapore, you could relate to that. That guy was making
Correct.
Singapore in Hyderabad.
So I think the concept of T-Hub is amazing. Is something very different for a country like India.
Yes.
Right? So that I think would be something amazing. But what it could have done or where it should have gone is a debatable question, right? Now that.
But do you think there would be a slowdown in T-Hub post government changes? I mean, of course, Revanth Reddy is also doing a fabulous job. I mean, whatever, no comments on the central government or the opposition, but Hyderabad isn't slowing down. And I see a lot of push I keep looking at the calendar of T-Hub, and I keep seeing that the events are not reducing and things are going at a fast pace.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think it's a great place to do events, etc. Right? I mean, it's a great place to get together. There's one in the evening. So yeah, I think those things are happening at a great place. What I alluded to earlier, right? The corpus of money and the corpus of mentorship available is still very low, right? Or is still less in Hyderabad when compared to the larger startup ecosystems.
But in India, isn't it a good alternative? Like, there's no other alternative to T-Hub. Or do we have something similar
No,
in
the
Bangalore?
question we are asking is what value add. See, if you ask that question, so I agree, there's no alternative to TF right now in India, but what's the value add is the question. And that's an important question to ask, right? And am I churning out, these at least $1 million startups, whatever? Those are the questions to ask. And, what's the value add that you bring? That, I think, it's a fine balancing act given whatever happens. And obviously, see, you are still under the aegis of the government, so you have some things. Like I visited Station F in Paris. It's a much larger facility, and what they've done is they've outsourced. They only 8 people or 10 people manage the whole space, right? And they've outsourced spaces to like a INSEAD or a Microsoft to do innovation, etc. So that's another way to look at it, right? So I'm saying, yeah, sure. So what KTR started and where it all began versus where it could go or where it should be, I don't know if I have all the blueprint.
Maybe other way of looking at it was when you compare it with Station F, which is working with Microsoft. If TF was in partnership with Google, Microsoft or PepsiCo or Apple, it would have looked that we are helping the MNCs to just
No,
settle
that's what
here.
I'm saying. Clearly, innovation only here, right? Only either it's startups you are investing in or the innovation that you're doing. That's all. There is nothing else that would happen, right? And you have ways to do it. We had started that ourselves. We had, I think, HP Labs and others. But again, it didn't. Also, let's agree that what can happen might be in the West is not easily replicable because we are still
at a nascent stage.
Cost centers, etc., of these large companies, right? So we don't have as much innovation as we would have liked to. So,
and also there's a lot of brain drain happening. Like,
sure,
a lot of people are moving out because of the taxation to some extent.
So do you see there is a gap in the kind of services that could be available for startups, which could reduce their cost of doing different things?
Well, no, not
The
cost.
structural mechanisms.
Not cost. See, I think startups require only, I mean, at all bare minimum, they require 2 things or 3 things, right? Money, customers, and guidance, right? Now, those are the 3 parameters you would compare most things with, right? And that, as I said, can be discussed more deeply. Money definitely is less in Hyderabad. Mentorship, I think, obviously some places, because let's say Bangalore has so many expats, etc. They have, they have sold companies, etc. So their understanding is much better. And and I think customers also, yes, most large companies are still not here. I mean, there are some, but most large companies which can give orders, etc.
In the B2B space.
Yeah. So that's where it is. So so those are the things. But I think what it has done is still amazing.
So very interesting journey, Ajay. बहुत मजा आया आपसे बात करके.
Thank you. Same here.
Thanks for joining us.
अगर आपको ये पॉडकास्ट पसंद आता है तो हमें फॉलो कर दीजिए YouTube के ऊपर और सारे सोशल मीडिया हैंडल्स के ऊपर, ताकि आपको लेटेस्ट में लेटेस्ट इन्फॉर्मेशन मिलता रहे. और ऐसे इंटरेस्टिंग और इंस्पायरिंग कंटेंट के साथ हम मिलते हैं आपको हमारे अगले एपिसोड में. तब तक के लिए गुड बाय.